Hi everyone, welcome back to What a Time to Be Alive. My name's Amu, and this is going to be my last episode for the foreseeable future, but who knows, I might come back to this. I'm not really sure yet, but yeah, as for now, this is going to be the end of the series, so let's get started. So today I kind of want to get into a continuation of what was started in the last episode, and that's talking about the Facebook scandal. So this past week, Mark Zuckerberg spent 2 days in front of Congress answering questions and being heard by a joint session of Congress. So it was both House of Representatives and Senate were both there, and he was answering questions that the senators had. And I mean, the senators overall are like kind of older Caucasian males, and I guess the Caucasian males part doesn't matter. They're just older and don't really have that great of an understanding of what technology is and how it really works and how Facebook works. And I'm not really convinced that they really understood the problem at hand, just because they're a little further away from the kind of things that people on social media have to deal with and the implications that this kind of has for the future. And I don't think they could really understand how users were affected by this issue as well as they could if they were more familiar with technology and Facebook in general. But anyway, Mark Zuckerberg he handled the whole situation pretty well. He remained calm. If any of you have seen the footage, he was really pretty calm and collected during the whole ordeal. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about some of the key points that happened during both days that Zuckerberg was at his congressional hearing. Just a little recap on what this whole issue is about. Facebook had this quiz app that was available, and a ton of its users used it. And it was by this company called Cambridge Analytica. And that data that they had was supposed to be deleted. And what they told Facebook was that all of that data that they'd gotten about the users on Facebook that had been using this app, and even the friends of the people using that app, had been deleted by 2015. Facebook didn't check up on this, and it turned out that over 87 million Facebook users had their data still being stored, and Cambridge Analytica supported Donald Trump in the election. And so they used the information about these 87 million users in order to target specific ad campaigns towards people. And the issue is that they believe that Cambridge Analytica and the way that ads were run on Facebook affected the turnout of the 2016 election. And the fact that Cambridge Analytica had these data profiles of all these people that were using the app was illegal. And that's the reason that Facebook's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, had to appear before Congress. So when he was in front of Congress, there was some major points to happen, even though I believe it was 5 hours long, the first hearing, the first day that he was in Congress. So first of all, the biggest fault that Mark Zuckerberg admitted to in the beginning was that Facebook did not bother to check on the fact that the data was erased or not. They just took Cambridge Analytica's word for it and assumed that all of their user information had been deleted already. But now we know that there really should have been a check on it. And he was also very clear to state that it's not his position that there shouldn't be any kind of regulation on Facebook. But I think his idea was rather that, considering the fact that social media is still relatively new, there's not a precedence that we can go off of to determine how much regulation there really should be. And I think his position is that he would like Facebook to still be a free platform where people can share what they want to share and have access to right information and, factually correct information, which I think was the problem with the propaganda that was being posted during the election. So overall, he just wants to preserve the base idea that Facebook and most social media was built upon, but without having these kind of problems come up again in the future, which would require some kind of regulation to be in place. And I think that's something that pretty much everyone can agree on. I think that's what most people want to have on their social media streams. They want to see things that are correct and not see fake news, but they want to also have the freedom themselves to share what they want to share without being too regulated or restricted on what they can and cannot say on social media. And it's a fine line that Facebook wants to get to, where they're not restricting someone's free speech or an organization's free speech, but are also not aiding people in doing illegal things. And Zuckerberg pretty much said that people who are in the business of meddling with elections are going to continue to get better at it. And he believes that Facebook is better equipped now to handle these kind of things in the future, because there's other elections coming up around the world, such as in India. And so he believes that there definitely does need to be some kind of regulation. There's just not a clear idea of what that would look like as of now. Another thing that senators called out about Facebook is the fact that their user agreement, quote unquote, sucks, according to Senator John Kennedy, who's from Louisiana. And, you know, that's really a problem, I think, with the users, because most things that we log on to, even when you buy a new iPhone, there's like I don't even know how many pages, because I've never even read it, of the user agreement that you have to agree to before you can continue using the iCloud services and all that. Facebook does pretty much the same thing. And Kennedy pretty much said that the user agreement was just some kind of a ploy that Facebook uses to cover them and not really to inform the user as it should be. The problem is that even though the user agreement is very long and most people don't read it, Zuckerberg's point was that people do have the opportunity to. And to be honest, it's just kind of a thing where most people nowadays, it could be that the user agreement is just a few sentences long. I don't think people would read it even then. I think people would still just say, yeah, like check mark I accept the terms, and then continue, because they just want to get to using the app or using the service or whatever they're trying to do. So I don't really think that was a smart way to try and attack Facebook. But once again, I think it just kind of shows that senators don't really understand what's going on with Facebook and social media in general and how that all really works, because they clearly don't have enough interaction with it to ask the most educated questions that they could. So the second day of questioning that Zuckerberg went to on Wednesday was, in my opinion, a lot more tougher than the first time around. It really seemed like more senators had kind of done their homework and prepared some really interrogative questioning for Zuckerberg. And basically what that consisted of was them attacking and questioning whether or not Facebook's business model or how they run their company at the core is working and if it should be changed. But Zuckerberg seems pretty unwavering in how he plans to run the company. But again, he just reiterated the fact that there needs to be regulation of some sort. Something that did come up in terms of handling how fake news and fake information on Facebook is going to be handled and regulated. Zuckerberg says there's going to be some sort of AI or artificial intelligence unit that's going to be used on Facebook in order to monitor and eliminate fake news and fake accounts that are active on Facebook in order to help curb that. But at the same time, he said that there's no way to completely put a stop to it, because people in Russia, is what he said, would still continue to push these stories into the newsfeed. And so there's no way for them to know 100% of what is fake and eliminate 100% of that from every single newsfeed, which is realistic. I mean, it's not really possible to do that, but at least they're going to be trying something, and there's something that's going to be done soon about this issue. Another thing that happened that was kind of funny, I'm not sure if this was the first or second day, but one of the senators asked Zuckerberg how his company makes money if they're not going to charge people to use the site, if they're not going to charge people to use Facebook. And Zuckerberg just kind of sat there for like a good few seconds. I'd say 5 seconds, just kind of looked in disbelief, and then just went, "Senator, we run ads." And it was just I just couldn't believe, because I swear, I really feel like these senators have interns and have assistants that definitely did write up questions for them that were probably better than that, because they're most likely younger than the senators are. And that's what he chose to ask. I get that it's kind of questioning the business model and how maybe the way that to get rid of horrible ads is just to get rid of the ads and then run on a paid subscription kind of thing in order for people to use services. But I think it took all of the energy that Mark Zuckerberg had to answer in that calm of a fashion about that question. But I thought that was kind of funny. So all in all, pretty much we can pick up on from what's happened in the congressional hearings between the senators in the House of Representatives and Mark Zuckerberg is that Facebook doesn't want to change how its business model is. It's trying to help the issue of fake news that's going around, and senators definitely do not know what's going on with social media. And so let's talk about some other stories that kind of came about in the news these past few weeks. So America this past week said that it had killed Kari Hekmatullah. Sorry, that was probably really butchered, but he was apparently the leader of the Islamic State in Afghanistan, which is, it's great that we did that. Even though someone died, clearly there's someone horrible that died that probably deserved to die. And I just went about Googling a little bit more about who he was, and oh my God, just to give you an idea of how horrible he must have been. He was kicked out of the Taliban, which is one of the most aggressive terrorist groups ever, for being excessively savage. Who's excessively savage for the Taliban? What does it take? I'm honestly curious. How is he too savage to be in the Taliban that they thought he was enough of a threat to kick out? What does it take for the Taliban to be like, "Yo, dude, you're beyond our level of savagery. Sorry about it. You gotta go." I've never heard of someone being too evil for a terrorist organization. And I just thought that was incredibly weird that someone was too evil for the Taliban. And just to give you an idea, the Taliban is who was responsible for the attack on the school bus of children where that Malala Yousafzai was on, and that's the Taliban was the people that were trying to prohibit those children from getting an education. They actually shot Malala because she was trying to advance education for young girls and other young children in Afghanistan. So, yeah, this guy was too savage for those people. Just putting that out there. One of the other big stories in the news this past week is the fact that President Trump, along with France and the United Kingdom, launched a strike in Syria, a missile attack in Syria in response to a chemical weapon attack that happened there. And a lot of people, and I can really only give the example of Indian news just because my family's Indian and my parents watch Indian news from time to time. And all I've seen so far is people just bashing Trump about it. They're just like, "Oh my God, there he is. Mr. Trump made another war in Syria and now there's people dying." And then they just show all of these kids that are injured and all of that. But they're really taking the side that Syria was fine and that he's the one who caused all of the problems there. And that's really not what happened. It was just Trump had said that he wants to leave Syria within the next few months, but the fact that there was this kind of a chemical attack, he launched the missile against the Syrian government, who has basically been using chemical weapons on the innocent civilians there. And there was a story that came out, and I'm reading it from CNN, which is a very liberal news source. There's a story from a man named Qassem Eid, who is a survivor of Syrian chemical attacks in 2013. And he actually says that he would like to, quote, buy President Trump a beer and tell him about how bad it is in Syria, end quote. And he basically would like to thank the president. He says that the attack in Syria that he launched against the Syrian government proves that he has, quote, a big heart, which Eid says is contrasting what Obama did, because he thinks there needs to be sustained and consistent efforts in Syria in order to help the people there escape from the radical government. And while just launching the missiles into Syria does not solve the entirety of the issue, obviously this has been going on for a very long time, but instead of just doing nothing and watching it happen, I think the missile strike definitely was a better idea and seems to have done damage to the chemical weapon usage of the Syrian government, and I think it hinders their ability to use it further, which is obviously a good thing, because otherwise it would be used on innocent civilians. And NATO actually completely supported the launch of these missiles, and again, it was done in coordination with France and the United Kingdom's militaries as well. But Russia actually condemned this whole attack and said that it would attempt to shoot down any missiles that would be going towards Syria. So that, I guess, builds some more tension where we really don't need to build any more tension, but it's okay, because according to Trump, the mission was a complete success and it did what it was intended to do, but of course it doesn't solve the issue at all. Just a little more information about the strike itself. It used about 105 missiles, and according to the Pentagon, it, quote, successfully hit every target, which was great, because otherwise you don't want it to hit places where there's a lot of innocent civilians, because that completely defeats the purpose. But it hit the appropriate targets, and there was extensive measures taken to make sure that it only hit where it was intended to be hit. However, a response to this from the Russian government and the Assad regime is that there's been a 2,000% increase of Russian trolls online who are probably going to be writing fake things about this and displaying news into social media accounts like Facebook and in the general news stream about the attacks and their results. But there is said, the Defense Secretary, James Mattis, says that there can be a lot of misinformation that will be spread through propaganda by those aligned with the Assad regime in Russia who is against this attack. So pretty much what happens in a result of this, the ball is in their court now, so it depends on what happens with them, but hopefully they'll just stick to spreading fake news and not try anything else, because clearly America's not messing around with any of these Syrian conflicts, and the president seems to be really serious about what he's done, because he's gone back on what he said about wanting to leave Syria. It just kind of shows that we're still committed to helping the condition over there. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys for this final episode. I want to thank everyone that's been listening for this long, and I hope that you guys are a little more informed about politics in America and around the world and how we're kind of doing in the political sphere, which is pretty much the intent that I had overall. As you guys know, I started this for a project. I still have about 2 weeks left, and my plan is to get this onto either iTunes or Spotify, if not both. So I'm going to be working on that for the next couple of weeks, but I guess until next time, if there is a next time, bye everyone.